From the very real dangers of falling at heights to the hazards in a confined space, we now get to that part of the course again where we discuss the legislation. In this case, we are looking at General Safety Regulation Section 5 with the heading Work in Confined Spaces. An employer or a user of machinery shall take steps to ensure that a confined space is entered by an employee or other person only after the air therein has been tested and evaluated by a person who is competent to pronounce on the safety thereof, and who has certified in writing that the confined space is safe and will remain safe while any person is in the confined space, taking into account the nature and duration of the work to be performed therein. Where the provisions of Sub-Regulation 1 cannot be complied with, the employer or user of machinery, as the case may be, shall take steps to ensure that any confined space in which there exists or is likely to exist a hazardous gas, vapor, dust or fumes, or which has or is likely to have an oxygen content of less than 20% by volume is entered by an employee or other person only when, subject to the provisions of Sub-Regulation 3, the confined space is purged and ventilated to provide a safe atmosphere therein, and measures necessary to maintain a safe atmosphere therein have been taken, and the confined space has been isolated from all pipes, ducts, and other communicating openings by means of effective blanking, other than the shutting or locking of a valve or a cock, or, if this is not practicable, only when all valves and cocks which are potential sources of danger have been locked and securely fastened by means of chains and padlocks. Where the provisions of Sub-Regulation 2A cannot be complied with, the employer or user of machinery shall take steps to ensure that the confined space in question is entered only when the employee or person entering is using breathing apparatus of a type approved by the Chief Inspector, and further, that the provisions of Sub-Regulation 2B are complied with. Any employee or person entering the confined space is using a safety harness or other similar equipment to which a rope is securely attached, which reaches beyond the access to the confined space, and the free end of which is attached to a person referred to in paragraph C. At least one other person trained in resuscitation is and remains in attendance immediately outside the entrance of the confined space in order to assist or remove any or persons from the confined space if necessary, and effective apparatus for breathing and resuscitation of a type approved by the Chief Inspector is available immediately outside the confined space. An employer or user of machinery shall take steps to ensure that all persons vacate a confined space on completion of any work therein, where the hazardous gas, vapor, dust, or fumes contemplated in Sub-Regulation 2 are of an explosive or flammable nature. An employer or user of machinery shall further take steps to ensure that such a confined space is entered only if the concentration of the gas, vapor, dust, or fumes does not exceed 25% of the lower explosive limit of the gas, vapor, dust, or fumes concerned, where the work to be performed is of such a nature that it does not create a source of ignition, or such concentration does not exceed 10% of the lower explosive limit of the gas, vapor, dust, or fumes where other work is performed. The provisions of this regulation shall mutatis mutandis also apply, insofar as they can be so applied to any work which is performed in any place or space on the outside of and bordering on or in the immediate vicinity of any confined space, and in which place or space, owing to its proximity to the confined space, any hazardous article, oxygen deficient atmosphere, or dangerous concentration of gas, vapor, dust, or fumes may occur or be present. Once again, we go back to regulations to find out what we should do when using general machinery. In this case, we start with the supervision of machinery in General Machine Regulation Section 2. In order to ensure that the provisions of the Act and these regulations in relation to machinery are complied with, an employer or user of machinery shall, subject to this regulation, in writing, designate a person in a full-time capacity in respect of every premises on or in which machinery is being used. The Chief Inspector may, subject to such conditions as he may impose, permit an employer or user of machinery to designate more than one person in terms of Subregulation 1. Subject to the provisions of this regulation, an employee designated in terms of Subregulation 1 shall be a competent person. If the sum of the power generated by machinery on or in the premises in question and the power derived from other sources, including the generation of steam for process purposes, exceeds 1,200 kilowatts but is less than 3,000 kilowatts, the person designated in terms of Subregulation 1 shall be a person as referred to in paragraph B, C, or D of the definition of competent person. If any such sum is 3,000 kilowatts or more, the person so designated shall be a person as referred to in paragraph C or D of the said definition. For the purpose of paragraph A, the power derived from the generation of steam by any particular boiler shall be calculated in kilowatts by dividing the manufacturer's rated evaporative capacity in kilograms of water per hour at 100 degrees Celsius by 21, or, in the absence of any such rated evaporative capacity, by multiplying the heating surface of that boiler in square meters by 0.8. If in the case where machinery on or in the premises in question is used solely for the distribution of electricity, the maximum demand over any continuous period of 30 minutes is 3,000 kVA or less, the person designated in terms of Subregulation 1 shall be a person as referred to in paragraph A of the definition of competent person and registered as an installation electrician in terms of Regulation 11.1 of the Electrical Installation Regulations. Any such demand exceeds 3,000 kVA but is less than 10,000 kVA, the employee so designated shall be a person as referred to in paragraph B, C, or D of the said definition. Any such demand is 10,000 kVA or more, the employee so designated shall be a person as referred to in paragraph C or D of the said definition. Notwithstanding the provisions of Subregulation 3, 4, and 5, the Chief Inspector may, subject to such conditions as he may impose, permit an employer or user of machinery to designate a person who holds any qualification other than that of a competent person in terms of Subregulation 1. An employer or user of machinery may designate one or more competent persons to assist a person designated in terms of Subregulation 1. The Chief Inspector may by written notice direct any employer or user of machinery to designate within the period specified in the notice the number of persons so specified holding the qualifications so specified to assist a person designated in terms of Subregulation 1. Except with the approval of an inspector, no person designated in terms of Subregulation 1 or 7 shall supervise machinery on or in any premises other than the premises in respect of which he has been designated. When an employer or user of machinery designates a person referred to in Subregulations 4A, 5B, or C, he shall forthwith forward to the Divisional Inspector a copy of the letter of appointment of that person. Notwithstanding the provisions of Subregulation 1, no employer or user of machinery needs to designate a person in terms of that regulation in respect of any elevator, goods elevator, escalator, or electrical installation in any shop or office or on or in any domestic premises, any domestic appliances used as such, any machinery used in conjunction with building work, any vehicle or earth-moving plant, or any refrigeration, cooling, air conditioning, or freezing plant inspected and maintained by a duly qualified person in pursuance of an agreement entered into by any such employer or user of machinery. The Chief Inspector may by written notice direct any employer or user of machinery referred to in paragraph A to designate within the period specified in the notice a person holding the qualifications so specified in terms of Sub-Regulation 1. Any employer or user of machinery who applies for exemption for the provisions of this regulation under Section 32 of the Act shall furnish the Minister with the following particulars, namely, the grounds for the application, the number of employees employed on or in the premises in question, the nature of the work performed on or in the premises in question, the number and type of incidents reported in terms of Section 17.1 of the Act during the preceding 3 years, the safety management system in force in respect of the premises in question, and such other particulars as the Chief Inspector may require. Notwithstanding the provisions of this regulation, machinery required to be supervised by a person referred to in paragraph B, C, or D of the definition of competent person may be used in the absence of any such person for a period not exceeding 1 month in any continuous period of 6 months. If it is due to circumstances beyond the control of the employer or user of machinery concerned, or in the opinion of the inspector, impractical to comply with the provisions of this regulation, provided that a person referred to in paragraph A of the said definition shall in writing be designated to supervise the machinery in question during such absence. Well, let's see. Are you still bearing with us? It comes to another part of reading the regulations. We appreciate that you've taken the time to listen and understand what the minimum compliance in terms of regulation is. Further to this course, we are going to divulge a little bit more information when it comes to taking the standards that we've just looked at and the regulations that we've read and put them into more practical terms for you as plumbers. However, we need you to stay with us. We really need to understand what minimum compliance is in terms of the regulations, see if we are adhering to this, and then what we can do to form best practice standards. So let us continue with General Machinery Regulations Section 3, and this is the safeguarding of machinery. Every employer or user of machinery shall ensure that all machinery is used by him is suitable for the purpose for which it is used, and that it is installed, operated, and maintained in such a manner as to prevent the exposure of persons to hazardous or potentially hazardous conditions or circumstances. In particular, cause every exposed and dangerous part of the machinery which is within the normal reach of a person to be effectively safeguarded by means of insulation, fencing, screening, or guarding, except where an inspector has granted written permission for the omission of such safeguarding. Ensure that all safety equipment is kept in a good working condition and is properly used. And ensure that the quality of material used in and the construction of the machinery or safety equipment is suitable for the purpose for which it was intended. Where machinery constitutes a danger to persons, the employer or user of machinery concerned shall cause the premises in question to be enclosed, and where such premises are unattended, the designated entrances to such premises shall be kept closed and locked. Unless he has been authorized thereto by the employer or user of machinery, no person shall remove any safety equipment which relates to the machinery in question. With only a few more pieces of regulations to read, we now get to the General Machinery Regulation 4. This is concerning the operation of machinery. An employer or user of machinery shall ensure that every person authorized to operate machinery is fully aware of the dangers attached thereto and is conversant with the precautionary measures to be taken or observed to obviate such dangers. If a person operates any machinery which requires constant attention in order to avoid accidents, he shall under no circumstances leave his post while such machinery is in operation, unless he is relieved by a person who is authorized and competent to operate such machinery. An employer or user of machinery shall ensure that any machinery which requires constant attention in order to avoid accidents is under the supervision of a shiftsman, who shall at all times be present on the premises while such machinery is in operation, and no person shall attend to or operate such machinery except under the general supervision of a shiftman. No person supervising machinery and no person operating machinery shall, without the permission of his supervisor, authorize any other person to do his work. If machinery threatens or is likely to threaten the safety of persons when it is unexpectedly set in motion or made electrically alive, the employer or user of machinery concerned shall take all reasonable precautionary measures in order to ensure that such machinery cannot be so set in motion or made electrically alive, and any person intending to set such machinery in motion or make it electrically alive shall take all reasonable precautionary measures in order to ensure that the safety of a person is not threatened or likely to be threatened. If machinery in operation threatens or is likely to threaten the safety of persons, the person supervising or operating such machinery, or the employer or user of machinery concerned, shall stop such machinery or cause it to be stopped. In your manual, you will find access to a lot more general safety, general machinery, general driven regulations, as well as some additional information. However, in this course, we are going to touch on things that are really concerning for plumbers. However, we want you to please take cognizance of the fact that every company must have a legal register in place. A legal register is a list of all the legislation that applies to you in your organization. In other words, if you are using a forklift in order to pack, stack, or store materials, then the driven machinery regulations will affect you and impact your operations, and thus you need to adhere to all those regulations. If it is a general regulation, such as the ones that we have been discussing, general machinery, general safety, general administrative, these are all regulations that pertain to every single company, and so all organizations within South Africa have to adhere to them, including the entirety of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. For many plumbers, you work within the construction industry, and so the construction regulations also affect you. So we are just touching on some of the most important items. We urge you to please ensure that you take HIRA, hazard identification and risk assessment, and apply it to your specific legal register. Let us continue on with a little bit more of minimum compliance in terms of the law. We're getting close to the end of reading all the legislation, and then we're going to go on to describing what you can do in a practical term as a plumber. Let's continue on with grinding machines from general machinery regulations. The user of a power-driven grinding machine shall cause such machine to be marked in a conspicuous place with the manufacturer's rated speed or speeds of the spindle in revolutions per minute. No user shall require or permit a grinding wheel of a power-driven grinding machine to be operated at a speed exceeding that of the manufacturer of such wheel, provided that a grinding wheel larger than 100 millimeters in diameter shall only be used if the recommended operating speed therefore is distinctly marked on it. The user shall cause every grinding wheel of a power-driven grinding machine to be mounted concentrically on the spindle by means of robust metal flanges, with annular peripheral bearing surfaces of adequate breadth which shall bear upon the wheel, and a layer of suitable compressible material shall be fitted between the flanges and the wheel. Provided that the grinding wheels for specialized operation, which cannot be fixed by flanges, shall be so secured that displacement or rupture of the wheel in motion is eliminated as far as possible. Having regard to the nature of the work which is performed, the user shall cause every power-driven grinding machine to be provided with a substantial guard, which shall enclose the grinding wheel as far as practicable, and which shall be of sufficient strength to withstand the force of impact of a rupturing wheel. Having regard to the nature of the work which is performed, the user shall cause a power-driven grinding machine, where the workpiece is applied to the wheel by hand, to be provided with a substantial adjustable work rest, which shall be securely fixed in position and adjusted to within 3 mm from the grinding face of the wheel. The user shall cause every power-driven grinding machine to be provided with a strong transparent shield, which shall be kept adjusted so as to protect the operator's eyes, provided that such shield may be omitted if every operator of the machine is personally issued with suitable eye protection and is obliged to wear it. The user shall cause a notice to be posted in a conspicuous place at every power-driven grinding machine, prohibiting persons from carrying out, inspecting, or observing grinding work without using suitable eye protection. During the course of your specific duties, you are going to come across tasks that require you to use portable electrical tools. For this, we turn to the General Machinery Regulations, Section 9, under the heading Portable Electric Tools. It states, "No user shall permit the use of, and no person shall use a portable electric tool, the operating voltage of which exceeds 50 to earth, unless it is connected to a source of electrical energy incorporating an earth leakage protection device, the construction of which meets the requirements of a safety standard incorporated for this purpose in these regulations under Section 36 of the Act. Or it is connected to a source of electrical energy through the interposition between each tool and the source of an individually double-wound isolating transformer, the secondary winding of which is not earthed at any point, and the construction of which meets the requirements of a safety standard incorporated for this purpose in these regulations under Section 36 of the Act. Or is connected to a source of high-frequency electrical energy derived from a generator which is used solely for supplying energy to such portable electrical tool, and which arrangement is approved by the Chief Inspector. Or it is clearly marked that it is constructed with double or reinforced insulation. No person shall sell a portable electric tool constructed with double or reinforced insulation referred to in Sub-Regulation 9 unless it is clearly marked that it is constructed with such insulation, and its insulation is constructed in accordance with a safety standard incorporated for this purpose in these regulations under Section 36 of the Act. No person shall use or permit the use of a portable electrical tool which is not fitted with a switch to allow for easy and safe starting and stopping of the tool. The user shall maintain every portable electric tool together with its flexible cord and plug in a serviceable condition.